Hey everyone, Tony D with another political video. Smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. And if you like politics, you're going to love my book, Wokistan, a Novel, now in paperback. Check out the review we got online with the MGTOW guys. It's a very interesting review, goes into detail about the book. And check out our reviews on Amazon. We're getting good reviews on Amazon. Check out the book now in paperback form and ebook. Yay! Okay, so today's video, Trump versus Trudeau. And the reason I'm making this video, I was talking to someone who hates Trump. And during our discussion, they talked about how our allies have been alienated by Trump. And they gave Trudeau and Macron kind of as examples because of those two guys laughing at Trump at that recent summit. And to which I responded, Macron's country, France, has been in straight riots for over a year. And Trudeau has been caught in blackface so many times, he doesn't remember how many times he's actually put on blackface. And that he got caught up in his own scandals trying to influence, I believe it was the Canadian equivalent of the Attorney General in a court case that could embarrass the Prime Minister, and there was quite a scandal there, and it was sort of as if the Democrats had a scandal with Obama, then investigated and decided, well, there's nothing else here, and ended the investigation. That's kind of the way it went up there. It's a little more complicated than that. I'm brushing it over. But as I was talking about Trump, as every political conversation seems to go these days, this person said that they would rather have Trudeau they would rather support Trudeau than Trump. And to which I pointed out the scandal and the blackface, and it's not just the blackface. It's the fact that Trudeau is this high and mighty SJW, and he was in blackface. So for him to posture and be like, well, no, we don't say mankind, we say people kind. And then it turns out the guy was in blackface multiple times. I mean, that seems to me the height of hypocrisy. And to abandon your own country's leader and to support another country's leader like that, I think it's partly because Trudeau is a young, handsome guy, and people are blinded by that. He's a personable, young, handsome guy. And that gets you, never say that looks don't get you anything. Looks get you a lot. They do. People coast on their good looks for a long time. They can get a lot out of it. And I think Trudeau, one of the main reasons Trudeau is as popular as he is because he's a good-looking guy. He's got a hot wife. They make a very hot couple, and I'm sure he's very charming. He seems very charming in all his, speeches and whatnot. He is like the JFK of Canada in a lot of ways. I think if Trump looked like that, it would be a different story over here. I think people would give him a pass a lot of times because if he was that handsome. Trump wasn't ugly, but, now he's in his 70s, so he looks how he looks. He looks pretty good for a guy in his 70s, I think. I mean, he looks better than Biden. Biden looks like the Crypt Keeper at this point. He does not look good. He's reached that point where he's kind of frail and he's kind of falling apart. During the Obama administration, he seemed pretty solid for the most part. But, coming out of that, nah, he's just gotten to the point where he's just slowing down. He's shaky. He seems shaky. And anyhow, getting back to Trudeau. So I found this fascinating that people would support Trudeau. This person also even said that they would rather have George W. Bush back than Trump, which I find absolutely shocking because back when Bush was president, everybody talked about Bush just like they're doing about Trump. Although it wasn't as visceral, it was definitely there. And I think Trump was far worse. He was far worse. He was bumbling and just made terrible decisions. Say what you want about Trump. Some of his decisions have turned out really good for everyone. I mean, you can't argue with the economy. You just can't. The economy's good, and that's a plus. Can't say it's a negative. It's lasted a lot longer than I thought it would, and a lot longer than even his harshest critics. A lot of them have had to admit, yeah, the economy's doing pretty good, and wage growth is there. It seems very unfair to support another country's leader, especially when you don't know much about this guy. And this person was like, didn't really know all that much about Trudeau and his deal, and that he's a legacy. Really, his father was prime minister, and it's kind of like if they elected a Kennedy here. There was a lot riding on his name. I'm reminded of, too, the Family Guy episode about Trump. Now, I'm going to, a spoiler alert here, if you're a Family Guy fan, you haven't seen this episode. It was out a while ago. It was a two-parter. And this was the episode that finally made me stop watching Family Guy. I was a big supporter of Family Guy, especially early on. Watched it pretty religiously. And then when I saw this episode, I thought, God, this is just really lazy and bad. The reason I think so is, if you look at some of the earlier episodes, they got quite political on Family Guy. They did the original political episode was the one where Peter becomes a lobbyist for the cigarette companies, which is a really funny episode. It was very bipartisan in its critique of lobbyists. Then later they did an episode where Lois becomes a correspondent on Fox, and they reveal that Fred Savage is actually Michael Moore and Rush Limbaugh. And then they actually did a Rush Limbaugh episode where Rush actually voices himself in the episode, which I thought was like interesting that, Seth MacFarlane seems to be no fan of Republicans, and yet he had this episode in which Rush got to kind of get his due. I think the problem with the Family Guy episode about Trump is they didn't really give Trump his due. They kind of made him such a caricature. It's kind of like what the news media does to Trump. They're just so relentlessly negative, it doesn't work after a while. And part of the problem with the Family Guy episode, most of the bits had gone off. They wrote them at a time when those bits might have been funny, but by the time they got the episode produced and on the air, there were so many more criticisms after that about Trump, about his appearance, about his wife's appearance, about what he does and how he acts. These were all but forgotten. They did tiny hands. They made him really tiny hands. And the key part of the episode was the whole thing that Trump once said about his daughter, how he would date his daughter if, he was younger and not related to her, kind of thing. It was this weird comment about how hot his daughter is. And so the crux of the episode was like Trump makes a move on Meg after Meg gets all dolled up because Ivanka helps her get all dolled up. And then, and again, I'm giving away the whole episode. The climax of the episode, and it's a two-parter, the climax of the second part is they get into the chicken fight, and now Trump's the chicken. And at the end of it, him and Peter fall off the Washington Monument, and they're saved by Justin Trudeau, who arrives, who throws out like a giant cushion for them to land on, and then rides up on a Segway and rides away like he's some sort of savior. And I thought that was really sort of a sad ending to the whole bit because, again, Trudeau is such a hypocrite. Now you look back on that episode and you got to think, this is the guy you really wish Trump was. This is the guy you wish was your president. A guy who's worn blackface so many times he can't remember how many times. I mean, that seems like a pretty bad choice for a left-leaning politician. How's that aging for you, Family Guy? It's just not good. And I find it kind of unseemly to have American commentators prop up another country's leader as being better, right? So, look, I hated Bush. I still think he was the worst president of all time, hands down. Can't stand him. But to say that, oh man, I wish I had, somebody else, going low power here, somebody else's leader as president, that to me would seem unseemly. I wouldn't do that. It's just, it's fine to criticize the president, but criticize him for what he actually kind of does and what he is. I've done that myself plenty of times. I just did it in Super Frat today with a comic strip. That this strip, I'll put it in as the picture. It's a comment on Trump's massive ego, and he does have a massive ego, and you could call him on that. That is punching up, but to just wholeheartedly call Trump evil Orange Hitler is punching down, because you're basically saying that there's nothing to him. He's a demagogue, and that's it. That's all there is to him. You have to give Trump his due. If they had done something in the episode to give Trump his due, like just he's a good businessman, or he makes money. You could say he's unethical. He certainly seems pretty unethical. I've heard the stories and I believe them. So, but they may not be true. They may not be true. It may be that that's his reputation, and he's happy to cultivate that to keep people on their toes. It's very strategic in that way. I didn't vote again. I didn't vote for Trump. But I find myself constantly defending him because people make these ridiculous statements about him. And when you say, "Oh, I'd rather have Trudeau than Donald Trump," you're really saying, I'd rather have a foreign leader. I find that foreign leaders are more important. It's an unseemly statement. It's terrible. And really, you need to know what you're talking about as well. If you really want Justin Trudeau as your leader, you can make him your leader. You can move to Canada and become a Canadian citizen. They'll let you do it. But, a lot of people don't, because the taxes are a lot higher in Canada, and you're going to be paying for stuff that, you may not want to pay for. You're going to be getting, universal health care, but that's different from the health care here. You just can't cross the line. So there are advantages and disadvantages, and if you want them, fine, go up to Canada, live there, try to make that life work. I wouldn't fault you for it if that's what you really want. Put your money where your mouth is. A lot of celebrities had said, "Oh, I'm going to move to Canada if Trump wins, or when he wins, I'm moving to Canada." Blah, 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 blah. They don't. They don't. Most of the celebrities make way too much money to move to Canada. They don't want to pay those kinds of taxes. Most of the Canadian celebrities who end up coming here and becoming famous and making lots of money, it's why they're dual citizens. It's so they can work the tax angle. It's why famous people in the UK come here. They become dual citizens or full citizens here. A lot of it's working the tax angle, because you don't want to pay the taxes in Europe. You want to pay the taxes here. So at the end of the day, Trump versus Trudeau, well, it's kind of a weird call. I would pick America over Canada because I'm an American and I live here and I like it here. If it was so bad that I didn't like it here, I would try to get out. There's a reason people come to America and want to live here so badly. There's a reason for that. It's really, really cool here. Even if you don't like Trump, it's still really, really, really cool to live in America. All right, so I'm going to go get fat and watch the internet. We'll see you next time.